Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so today we're going to dive into a piece of software that has been punching way above its weight for decades, the Opera browser.
So you've definitely heard of Opera, right? But take a look at these numbers. Would you believe it holds just over 2% of the desktop market? I mean, in a world where Google Chrome is this absolute giant, Opera barely seems like a blip on the radar. But trust me, that tiny number, it hides a much bigger story.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a browser with such a tiny user base have such a massive reputation? Well, the answer isn't about market share at all. It's about influence. We're talking about a 30-year saga of relentless innovation, some really radical pivots, and a totally unique strategy for survival that, believe it or not, has shaped the way every single one of us browses the web today.
All right, to really get what Opera is doing now, we've got to go back, way back. You see, its journey started long before many of its biggest rivals were even a glimmer in a programmer's eye. So get this, Opera actually started as a research project in Norway way back in 1994. And for its first decade, you actually had to pay for it. Can you imagine paying for a browser today? They tried out an ad-supported model for a while, but then in 2005, they made this absolutely crucial decision. They went totally free, banking on a search deal with Google to pay the bills. And right from the get-go, their whole mission was clear. Just build cool stuff that made the web more powerful and easier to use for everybody.
Okay, now look at this list. Tabbed browsing, pop-up blocking, private mode. I mean, these things are just normal now, right? They're part of every browser. But what's absolutely wild is that every single one of these essential features was either invented or first popularized by Opera. They did it first, and then everyone else followed.
But here's the thing. Being first doesn't mean you win the race. To survive in a world with giants like Microsoft and then Google breathing down your neck, Opera had to make some massive, and at the time, pretty controversial, changes to its very DNA.
So the first big pivot they made was a complete engine swap. And for a browser, the engine is, well, it's everything. It's the thing under the hood that dictates how fast pages load, what they look like, and basically everything they can do.
For most of its life, Opera ran on its very own engine, this powerful piece of tech called Presto. But after the big browser wars, the web started to kind of consolidate around Google's open source project, Chromium. You know how it is. More and more websites were being built to work perfectly with Chrome, and that left other browsers in the dust. So in 2013, Opera made a really tough, pragmatic choice. They ditched their own unique engine and switched to Chromium. You could say they traded a little bit of their soul, but what they got in return was guaranteed compatibility with pretty much every website out there.
Okay, the second huge pivot happened in 2016, and this one was about ownership. The company was acquired by a Chinese consortium, making it a part of the Beijing-based Kunlun Tech. Now, while that definitely shifted the corporate structure, it's important to note that Opera's headquarters and its core development teams stayed right where they were, mainly in Norway and Poland.
All right, so those two big moves, the engine swap and the new ownership, they really set the stage for Opera's modern strategy. And honestly, it's kind of brilliant. They basically realized they were never going to win a head-to-head fight to be the #1 default browser, so they just stopped playing that game. Instead, they started building specialized browsers for very specific people. So instead of having one browser that tries to be for everyone, Opera now has this whole family of products. You've got Opera One, that's their main flagship for the everyday user, with cool stuff like a built-in AI and a new way to organize tabs. But then they get specific, like really specific. Let's talk about Opera GX. This thing is built from the ground up for gamers. And its killer feature? Oh, it's so smart. It has built-in limiters that let you decide exactly how much of your computer's CPU and RAM the browser is allowed to use. What does that mean? It means your game isn't going to start lagging just because you have a bunch of tabs open in the background. Throw in integrations for Twitch and Discord right in the sidebar, and you've got a browser that solves a real problem for a super passionate audience. And then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have something like Opera Air. This one is all about combating digital stress and, that endless doom scrolling we all do. It has features built right in that focus on your well-being, like reminders to take a break, ambient sounds to help you focus, and tools designed to help you just step away from the screen for a bit. And they're still pushing the boundaries, still experimenting with what a browser even is. Look at Opera Neon. This is their concept for what they call an agentic browser. The idea is that the AI doesn't just answer your questions, it actually understands your goals and takes action for you. So instead of you doing 10 clicks to book a trip,
the browser could potentially handle all of that for you. It's a peek into the future.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does Opera's story really tell us about the future of browsers? Well, it's basically a masterclass in how a smaller company can not only survive against giants, but actually thrive.
And you know what? It is absolutely working. I mean, sure, that desktop market share is tiny, but when you add up all their products, especially their super popular mobile browsers, Opera serves over 320 million active users. That's huge. By ditching the idea of a single default browser and instead targeting all these different niches, they've built a massive dedicated user base all around the world.
And this quote from them just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures their whole mission. They still see themselves as that scrappy innovator, the underdog, who's bringing cutting-edge stuff like AI and Web3 to everyone for free. See, they're not trying to be the default browser that comes with your computer anymore. They're trying to be the best browser for whatever it is you're passionate about.
And that really leaves us with a fascinating question for the entire industry. In a world where most of us just use whatever browser came pre-installed on our phone or laptop, maybe trying to build one browser for everybody is just a losing game. Maybe, as Opera has shown us, the only way to really win is to stop trying to be everything to everyone and instead focus on being something truly special to someone.